Starting off this countdown, we have the parallel wedding. This story was posted on Reddit by the user ParallelAltGirl, who went to a wedding in a parallel universe. So back in the day, she attended her aunt's wedding. The wedding was big and the theme of the wedding was dark blue. So all the bridesmaids were wearing blue dresses, and so was she. After the wedding, she took a little nap before the reception. But when she woke up, she was no longer in a blue dress. She was in a light orange one. So was everyone else. She didn't know how that was even possible. But even looking back at the wedding photos, she was photographed attending the wedding in an orange dress, along with all the other bridesmaids. So now she believes that she somehow woke up in another universe, one where everyone wore orange instead of blue to the wedding.
So let's move on to number 9, FaceTime Folly. Now this one was a comment on our last video by Toshi the Dream. They say they typically FaceTime themselves before FaceTiming girls to check themselves out, and doing this results in the phone ringing for a bit and then saying call failed because you can't answer or call yourself really. So they're doing this like usual when the phone starts to say it's connecting, like someone is answering the call. They say it felt like everything froze and their heart stopped, and then their phone shut off. And at the time they thought it was a glitch, but when they thought back after watching our last video, they thought it could be a sign from another universe. Maybe a parallel universe was trying to reach out and answer that call. They said they had chills typing out the message, feeling like they were meant to watch the video at that time. So hey, I hope you found some answers lately, and if you have, like, let me know. I wanna know. Yeah.
At number 8, we have the Spider-Verse. Oh yeah, baby, one of the best movies of 2018. For a very long time, Marvel has utilized the idea of the multiverse in their comics, TV shows, and movies. And the Spider-Verse brings it all together in one of the most amazing ways. A Spider-Man from one universe gets launched into another universe and then is forced to save the day from alternate versions of several villains. Then he teams up with more alternate versions of Spider-People, let's be inclusive, and it's one of the most awesome gatherings of superheroes ever. The scary part about this is the fact that all these parallel universes have a new batch of villains. Every universe has a different Doc Ock, Sandman, Goblin, all of them, and then again and again and again and again and again.
Coming in at number 7, we have Deja Vu. Deja vu, a glitch in the Matrix or a signal from a parallel universe. While both seem as likely as one another, it is thought by some that the weird moments where we feel like we've been or experienced something before are actually signals that something key is happening in our parallel lives. Not only do some people believe parallel universes exist side by side, some people think they interact with one another in some way. According to Dr. Michio Kaku, an American futurist, deja vu occurs as a result of a person's ability to flip between universes. Others believe it is because we're vibrating in unison with the frequency of another universe that's parallel with our very own. Oh, I've gone cross-eyed.
For number 6, we have strange artifacts. There have been items that are still puzzling archaeologists as to where they have come from and how old they are. It's like when you wake up after a blackout and you find a half-eaten, uncooked frozen pizza on your floor, and you have 30 text messages sent out to your ex and you're like, what happened last night? Well, this is kinda like that, but with more science. One of the best examples of this is the London hammer. It was discovered in 1936 and it seems to be a man-made iron hammer, but it was found in a mound of rock that's over 400 million years old. And I might be wrong about this, but I don't think there was any hammers back 400 million years ago. How did a human tool work its way all the way back to before the dinosaurs? Perhaps it was blasted through a wormhole from another dimension. Hopefully not with the guy who made it still holding on to it. One minute you're blacksmithing a sword and the next you're getting devoured by an 8-foot tall centipede. There was also the blue rock that was discovered in Sierra Leone. This rock was sent to research labs around the world, but no one was able to identify its origin or link it to any other known rocks.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the accident. Posted by the user UMAwake, they shared a story about the time that they were involved in an accident in one universe but not the other. So when she was younger, she was outside watching her uncle do wheelies on his 4-wheeler. Eventually she hopped on to have some fun, but sadly the 4-wheeler flipped. All she remembers is it getting very quiet and then waking up on the couch inside the house. She went outside to find her family helping her cousin and uncle get out from under the 4-wheeler, but she vividly vividly remembers being the one on the vehicle that flipped.
Let's move on to number 4, parallel parent. This is another comment from our previous video, and it was from Tyler Gollin. He wrote about an experience that he says he thinks about to this day. When Tyler was about 6 or 7, he went to sleep at his dad's house on what would have been a weekend, only to wake up at his mom's, which would typically be a school night. At such a young age, Tyler said this made him freak out crying, and his mom came in to calm him down, telling him it was just a nightmare. She said she put him to sleep at 8 p.m. and at that point, when he woke up, it was just after 8:30 p.m. But when he fell asleep at his dad's, he saw the clock and it said 8:51 p.m. And then Tyler can't figure out a reason, and his mom doesn't remember anything like this happening at this point in life, so was it all just a dream from another universe where the sleep schedule got flipped with his mom and dad, or what is up? What could have been that situation? I don't know.
At number 3, we have Old Man Logan. This is one of the darkest alternate realities from the Marvel Universe. Basically, the heroes lose, some of them in horrible ways. Like when Mysterio pulls an illusion over Wolverine, so he thinks he's killing villains, but he ends up killing a bunch of X-Men allies. Ant-Man dies, and there's a massive highway built through his skeleton corpse that just sits out in the open. And Hulk and She-Hulk have a bunch of Hulk kids and then send them out to extort money from people. And yes, Hulk and She-Hulk are related. This is very gross. I don't want to spoil too much for you about this comic, because if you haven't read it, it's amazing. You should definitely go pick it up. But if you do, make sure you're over 18 and prepare for some disturbing storylines.
Coming in at number 2, we have City in the Sky. In October 2015, Chinese TV went wild when thousands of residents in 2 areas of the country reported seeing a huge floating city in the clouds. Puzzled onlookers saw skyscrapers in the clouds and believed that they were seeing a ghost city, or the colliding of our reality with a parallel universe. The phenomenon occurred in both Guangdong and Jiangxi, with some believing it was the beginning of an alien invasion. The images were caught on camera for the world to see and promptly went viral across the rest of the globe. So what on Earth or above Earth is going on? Well, even though it looks like a city in the clouds to you and me, apparently it is an optical illusion called Fata Morgana, which is the natural mirage. So that is what a lot of scientists are saying anyway, but other people are convinced it's a sign of a parallel universe, or even a window to another world.
And finally, at number 1 is the interdimensional tunnel. Now this story actually came from the book Hunt for the Skinwalker, and this particular story is about the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Now this ranch is infamous for strange happenings. People who have spent the night there have seen things they don't even know how to talk about or explain, so how the hell am I meant to tell you guys about them? I can't. Well, in this book, a hunter that the author met described seeing an interdimensional tunnel open up on the ranch. He saw it through his binoculars, and initially it just looked like a bright yellow circle, but it started getting deeper and deeper, and that wasn't even the worst part. Then a huge faceless creature crawled out of the circle and then disappeared into the woods, and mind you, this massive shining portal was still open for business and ready to pump out more faceless monsters. Like, are we just gonna push that under the rug? I guess so. The hunter left the area ASAP Rocky and never went back there, but he's been utterly convinced ever since that tunnel or portal was to another dimension or universe, and honey, I believe you. You're preaching to the converted.
So starting at number 10, parallel universe or a prank. Our first story comes from user DanoRive on Reddit. They work in an immigration law firm and set up a conference call between a client and a lawyer. They set up the appointment for 5 p.m, send a confirmation email, and all is looking good. Once 5 p.m. hits, they make the call to the client and transfer him to the lawyer to talk. Seems pretty chill. 10 minutes in, user DanoRive gets another call on line 2 with a guy saying, "Hi, I'm calling for my appointment," and this guy sounds exactly like the first guy. So DanoRive puts this second caller on hold, thinking the lawyer must be talking to the wrong guy, and the lawyer then says, "Yeah, transfer me to line 2, and he does, but the conversation is still going on line 1. And then they check line 2, and the person the lawyer is talking to sounds the exact same, and they're talking about the same case. Then they check the phone numbers for the 2 different conversations that are happening at the same time, and the calls are both from the same number. DanoRive says the lawyer was speechless after his conversation, and so were their 2 other coworkers. You could think maybe twins with the same voices, but calling from the same number at the same time? I don't know, man.
At number 9 we have The Matrix. Take the blue pill or the red pill. See the world as it actually is or stay asleep. The Matrix has one of the best representations of alternate reality. It's not exactly a parallel universe, but it kind of is, and it's very cool, so I wanted to include it. In The Matrix, the machines have taken over the world and farm humans like cattle that are locked away in these jelly pods. Why do they do this? Energy. Humans are essentially batteries for the robots, and to keep the humans in a sleep-like state and make them easier to harvest, the machines make a reality that every human is plugged into. The Matrix. The Matrix keeps humans docile, but some realize that they are living a lie and are able to wake up. It's the original "are we living in a simulation" idea. It was way ahead of its time, and it changed action movies forever.
Coming in at number 8, we have the Bernstein Bears phenomena. Also called the Mandela effect, the Bernstein Bears phenomena claims to prove the existence of parallel universes with subtle differences. People vehemently claim that the Bernstein Bears were spelled with an E and not an A, and honestly, I for one absolutely thought that the Looney Tunes were the Looney Tunes until I watched a video on the phenomena last year, and now I'm straight up convinced that I'm living in the wrong universe, as it is clearly Looney Tunes. They're cartoons. This new world doesn't make any sense. Some people out there are also adamant that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the late 1980s, which is more than just a slightly altered timeline. It's not just spellings here, this is a pretty major parallel universe event.
Filling our number 7 slot is Lisbia. So back in 1905, a man was caught by police in Paris for attempting to steal a loaf of bread. And I mean, geez, you guys, it's just bread, just let him have it. Cut the man some slack. They ended up taking him to the station and questioning him, and they soon realized he couldn't speak a language. He didn't understand or speak French. He spoke something that sounded like Esperanto but wasn't, and had different grammar to it. After trying to communicate with him for hours, they finally found a way to ask him where he was from, to which he replied Lisbia. And at the time, the police just thought that was his way of saying he was from Lisbon, but then he didn't understand or speak Portuguese, which sus, very sus. But again, it's fine, because he could have been from Lisbon but been brought up somewhere else and never learned the language. Like, it is fine, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. Strange man. But then, when given a map of Portugal, he had no clue what he was looking at whatsoever, so the officers eventually realized the man meant Lisbia was a country. Where at no one knows what happened to the man or where he went, but maybe he just crossed over back to his universe and made his way back to Lisbia. I don't know. Can I get a visa? I'd like one.
Coming in at number 6, we have jumping universes. So this story was posted on Reddit a month ago, but the user that posted the story deleted their account. I wonder why. Maybe they ended up in a different universe. Alright, so this individual wrote that every time they wake up from a sleep, they believe that they are in a different universe. The differences in each universe are small, but still you know that something is not quite right. Some people will act differently from day to day, or a location of objects will move ever so slightly. So they believe that every day they end up in a different universe. And a lot of people commented on this post claiming that they too have had similar experiences, where they fall asleep and then wake up and they're in a different universe. My only question is, how many universes are out there?
Number 5, sleep talking takeover. This is another one from Reddit, this one from Big Jows86. He was coming back from a trip that was part of his graduation for civil engineering when it happened. He had a couple of drinks but got the front seat on the way back, so although he was sleepy and a little bit inebriated, he wanted to stay chatty so the driver wouldn't get tired, which is a good plan. They got onto the topic of video games through the chatter, and when he fell asleep the first time, instead of stopping the conversation, in his sleep he started talking about some engineering project he was working on as though he had been working on this project for a while, but he was asleep. Anyways, half asleep and hearing his friend laughing at the sudden change of subject, he awoke to talk more back about the video games, but then started falling asleep again and switched back to the topic of engineering mid-sentence, picking up talking about that project where he left off. What made this all the more weird for them was the fact that he had no current project he was working on or any engineering job in his field, but his friend who had done some work in the field said what he was saying in his sleep was making sense. He said, "To me it felt as if my mind had tuned on to the same frequency of a more successful version of myself for a brief moment, as it hung between the dream world and the real world, and I was a bit jealous of him, lol." Do you ever project yourself into a future version of you that's better than you? I can't even imagine it, honestly. I don't know.
At number 4 we have Marvel Zombie World. So it's superheroes, but they're zombies. They still have all their powers, but they also have an endless urge to eat human flesh. So there's the Hulk, but you don't want to see him when he's hungry. This sounds like the worst possible thing that could ever happen. So here's what happens. The hero Sentry arrives on Earth carrying a zombie virus, but he's a Sentry from another dimension. He starts to infect all the heroes, and the heroes start to eat everything. While they're satisfied, they don't have an endless urge to eat, but while they're hungry, they can't control themselves at all, so much so that Peter Parker eventually eats Mary Jane and Aunt May. Eventually, Silver Surfer comes to sort things out, and they eat him too. This gives some of the zombies the power cosmic. Then Galactus comes, and they eat him too, then fashion his armor into weapons for themselves. Then some of the heroes fly to other planets and start eating all the people there. I won't tell you how it ends, but a lot of people get eaten.
Coming into number 3, we have the cold spot. In 2004, astronomers found something that baffled them, an unusually cold area of space. The area is 1.8 billion light years across and much colder than its surroundings. The area also contained 10,000 less galaxies than in other areas of a similar size studied in space. A researcher from Durham University in the UK believed that the spot could be evidence of a multiverse. They said it seemed as if a parallel universe smashed into ours, affecting it like a car pile-up on the motorway would, only they're calling it a cosmic shunt. They believed the impact was so vast it pushed energy out from a big region of space, therefore creating the cold spot. It's hard to get your head around, but that is what they think.
And at number 2 we have the cold spot. When you flip your pillow over and it's cold on the other side, that's because there's a small amount of cold radiation buildup on the other side of your pillow from a parallel universe. That thing I just said, that is completely made up. Cold radiation? I'm an idiot. The cold spot is actually an area in our universe that is 1.8 billion light years away. Through what's called microwave background mapping, we've been able to map the cosmic rays in the universe possibly back to the Big Bang. Through this technology, scientists were able to locate this cold spot. The reason this massive field was colder was because it had 20% less mass in it than it should. Why does this area have less mass? Well, because it was just hot girl summer. Don't you remember? Sorry if this cold spot is too skinny for you. Well, actually, some scientists think that this could be from another universe crashing into ours. The force of these universes colliding caused a massive amount of energy to fly out, thus making the area colder. This could be the doorway into another universe where the laws of physics are completely different from what we understand. Now you just need to make the 1.8 billion light year trip to get there.
And in our number 1 spot, we have Denny's. Ever wonder what food is like in an alternate universe? Well, they still got Denny's, I can tell you that. But it goes by another name there, Penny's. Yep. Reddit user is_emo posted a story about the time he ended up going to a place called Penny's, which was identical to Denny's. From the building to the food and the menu, everything was the same. Except it was called Penny's. He even asked his parents about it since he had been to that restaurant in that same location multiple times, but they said it has always been called Penny's. A couple weeks later, when passing by the restaurant, he noticed the sign "Turn back to Denny's." He asked his parents again and they said they have never even heard about Penny's. What's going on? Like, that would drive me insane. Does this happen to other restaurants too in other dimensions? Like, is Chick-fil-A called Flick-Chile? Thought-provoking question.
At number 10 we have the Upside Down from Stranger Things. This show has become one of the biggest hits since everyone has started to switch over to streaming services. 80s nostalgia blast with a bunch of kids playing Dungeons & Dragons and falling in love and trying not to get murdered in the process. This show is also home to the Upside Down, a parallel to our own universe where everything is trying to kill you. If you haven't watched the show Stranger Things, I'm going to put a spoiler warning right here. Actually, there's going to be a spoiler warning on this whole video because we are talking about a lot of film and television stuff, so spoilers for the whole video. You have been warned. The Upside Down is a dark, monster-filled reality that was accessed by a psychic girl named 13, connecting to a monstrosity from that realm known as the Demogorgon. Her connection with this creature opened a rift through the two worlds, which allowed the creature to escape into our world. The creatures from the Upside Down are nearly unkillable, and some of the most powerful ones even have the ability to possess people. Oh, and I forgot to mention they will eat you given the opportunity.
In our 9th spot, we have the Swapped Selves. This story was posted on on Reddit by the user someone else 777. She believes that she swapped places with her parallel universe self. So story goes that she was out for a hike one day with her boyfriend. They were nearing the end of the hike when her boyfriend decided to climb a big rock formation. But she was too tired, so she continued to walk down the path to meet him at the other end. However, while walking, she got a bad feeling, thinking that something bad happened to her boyfriend. Then all of a sudden, she was someone else. She went from thinking, what if my boyfriend gets hurt? I should rescue him, to I came here alone, who am I rescuing? So in one universe, she was out hiking with her boyfriend. In the other, she was out hiking alone. When she switched places, she noticed that her other self was a bit different. She was a bit taller, fitter, and felt more confident. She was also carrying a tent and supplies for a solo journey. Her boyfriend was not with her. Like what? That would freak me out. Just all of a sudden like, and you're someone else? But like, yourself, but then someone else? I don't know.
We have another person lacking answers at number 8, with year change. This is another one from a commenter, this time Mortaliar. Mortal liar? I like Mortaliar, it sounds bougie. Back when they were a kid, they had a cartoon Transformers VHS where at the very end there was a sentence spoken by the narrator. It was something like, now in the year blank, but instead of blank, it said the current year. Obviously, after watching it throughout the years, this caught Mortaliar's attention, so they asked their mom to memorize it, and apparently she even took notes. But for some reason, their mom always agreed with what the narrator was saying that year. This is puzzling and gets me thinking of stuff like the Mandela effect and the whole Berenstain Bears thing, or Berenstain Bears, and kind of confuses you. I don't know. But let's switch back over to Reddit.
At number 7, we have Imagination Land South Park. You know, if it's South Park, there has to be something twisted and hilarious going on. In the 11th season of South Park, a few of the boys end up in Imagination Land, where all the wonderful ideas are born. But then Imagination Land gets invaded by Islamic terrorists, who blow up the wall between the good side and evil side of Imagination Land. This then starts an all-out war where it's everything good and everything evil all pointed at each other to kill each other. At one point, you have Jesus Christ mowing down monsters with an assault rifle. South Park never disappoints me. So half of Imagination Land isn't scary at all, and the other half is literally everything that has ever been scary. Oh, and I forgot to mention the part where the US government gets help from Freddy Krueger to save Imagination Land. This is truly a masterpiece.
Coming in at number 6, we have the Lost Beatles album. A parallel universe may have given our world a gift in the form of a Lost Beatles album, Everyday Chemistry. This story goes that in 2009, a man called James Richards found himself accidentally in a parallel universe, as you do. Luckily, there was also a person from another parallel universe there, a man named Jonas. Now, Jonas was on a trans-dimensional tourism trip from the other Earth, and he told Richards that in his world, amongst other things, John Lennon was still alive and the Beatles never broke up. Richards then stole a copy of a later album never released by the band and returned with it to our Earth. What did he do with one of the most sought after pieces of music from a non-history that almost but never happened here? He uploaded it to the internet. Eagle-eared fans were absolutely having none of it though. They said the album is comprised of clever mashups from all of the Beatles' solo careers. Richards later said that even though in an alternate universe the Beatles hadn't broke up, that didn't mean their future music ideas disappeared. I'm not so sure about this one, but I would love to hear what Paul McCartney has to say about it. Paul, tell us, is it real? I guess you're living in another universe so you don't know, but I don't know. I feel like you'd be able to answer.
Coming in at number 5 are the Beatles, and this one is debatable because it really comes down to whether we want to believe this person or not, so let's just go with it. So back in 2009, James Richards was driving home in California with his dog. We love a good doggo appearance. You are a good boy. Don't let anybody tell you different. Now he ends up pulling over because the dog has to pee, and we all know dogs have 3-second attention spans, so off it goes chasing a rabbit. Now James springs into action and starts chasing after her, but trips and hits his head on a rock and ends up unconscious. Like already this sounds like a very bad remake of Alice in Wonderland without the hallucinogenics, so what is going on here? Now when James finally woke up, he was next to an odd machine and a man called Jonas who claimed he found his body while on a work trip for the interdimensional travel agency that he worked for. Do you have openings, Jonas? Can I apply? What do you need? What do you need for the CV? I'm there for it. Either way, they end up talking for absolutely ages and start discussing the differences in pop culture, because that's apparently the #1 thing you want to know about a parallel universe, like not world leaders or climate change, pop culture. Guess I'm a nerd. Either way, James ended up finding out that in Jonas's universe or dimension, the Beatles also existed. They were all still alive and they were all making music. And I know anyone can say that, but Jonas even gave him a cassette called Everyday Chemistry, which had Beatles songs on it that never existed in our dimension. Those songs are actually on the BeatlesNeverBrokeUp.com if you do want to check them out, but damn Jonas, you have my attention now.
Coming in at number 4, we have The Breakfast Place. Posted on Reddit by the user TexasKSMO, she shares a story about the time her and her husband visited a restaurant in a parallel universe. So to begin, the couple bought a little country house which they go to on the weekends. One weekend while traveling there, they decided to stop and have breakfast at a restaurant they had never seen before. They entered and a man in a cowboy hat said, "You can just seat yourself." I feel like that's what he sounded like if he had a cowboy hat on, so. They ended up having a nice meal and wanted to return a couple weeks later. However, when they went back to try and find the same restaurant, it was gone. Instead, in place of the restaurant was an old boarded up abandoned building. The building looked the same, but was completely deserted. Dun, dun, dun. I wonder how food tastes though in another universe. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. Maybe they have new food that we don't have in this universe. Who knows?
Let's go. Number 3, SPIDER-HOAX. So another commenter talked about Spider-Man, so I had to include it. Back when Rachel Knight Online was in 3rd grade, she saw Spider-Man 3 at its opening night in the theaters. She saw it with her 2 brothers and her dad, and they said they all remember the same string of dialogue during the scene where MJ is breaking up with Peter Parker in Central Park. They all heard Peter say, "What's going on? Why are you doing this?" And MJ reply, "Because there are things." That was me trying to be dramatic. And then Peter asks, "What things?" People tell people things while sniffling and crying and being very overdramatic, so it comes off hilarious. And while all 4 of them remember that scene happening that way, it never did. So they all became very confused, and was that like just a group hallucination? Or a parallel universe, you tell me.
At number 2, we have the movie VHS with the Monster Universe. This movie is literally called VHS. It's one of my favorite horror series. It's a pretty simple concept. In this particular vignette, a man named Alfonso develops a portal to another world, a universe at first glance that seems to mirror our own. Alfonso encounters a parallel version of himself, and the two trade sides to explore the other universe. This is where it starts to get weird. He travels through the house and finds a parallel version of his wife, who looks the same but is dressed a little seductively in a silk robe. She doesn't know that this is the Alfonso from the alternate universe. She then introduces him to 2 men who are over. Maybe in this universe everyone's a swinger, I don't know. The 4 of them walk into the living room where it seems like some strange satanic rituals going on. There's a bag of meat hanging on a hook, and on the television there's a person being burned alive on a cross. He should have stayed in Kansas. It turns out that this is some sort of sexual ritual, and all the people in this universe have monsters for genitals. The guys that were with his wife revealed that they have these long, slimy, bearded, Venus flytrap looking penises that are like huge, and the women have these vaginas that can literally eat your face. Yeah, terrible place to vacation.
Finally, coming into number 1, we have black holes. The theory of loop quantum gravity suggests that there is no point of singularity in a black hole, rather they're simply folds in the universe. Everything we know about quantum physics tells us that information is never lost, that energy can't be created or destroyed, so perhaps black holes don't suck and destroy, maybe they suck and create. A lot of scientists are dabbling with the idea that black holes are indeed folds or portals to an older part of the universe. Professor Stephen Hawking gave a lecture in 2015 wherein he discussed how it may be possible to come out of the other side of a black hole. He said the hole would need to be large, and if it was rotating, it might have a passage to another universe. But you couldn't come back to our universe. Anyone want to take that one-way trip? I don't know if I do. So guys, are black holes portals to another universe? This seems like a good moment to mention our sister channel Life's Biggest Questions, which answers all kinds of questions, especially like that. We love a bit of black hole chat, so head on over there where you'll hear me, you'll hear Charlotte, you'll hear Jack. Good times. So guys, that's the end of our list. Do you believe in multiverses? Let me know in the comments section down below. I've now reached the part of the video where I get to read out your comments from a previous video, and alright, coming in at number 10, we have the deep space radio bursts. Mystery fast radio bursts were discovered in 2007. These bursts flash for a micro instant, but emit more energy than the sun does in 10,000 years. The high energy surges of long waves have been detected 18 times over the past 10 years, and one burst in 2012 recorded in Puerto Rico occurred numerous times in the same pattern. Okay, this is what it sounded like. After fierce debates and a lot of head scratching, the source of the sound was traced to a microgalaxy 3 billion light years away from Earth. A lot of theorists have concluded that the sound is a space signal from another world or a parallel universe looking to get in touch.
Coming in at number 9 are the CROSSROADS. So back in November of 1986, Pedro Oliva Ramirez was making his way from Sevilla to his home in Alcalá de Guadaira. I hope I said that right. As he was turning a corner, he found himself on a 6-lane highway that had never been on the route before. Either way, he hadn't done the journey for a while, so he assumed it could have been new. He continued down the highway, but he started seeing weird things like 20-story housing units, 2 feet high grass bordering the highway, and just unidentified metallic structures. After finally clocking something was off, he suddenly felt hot as hell in the car and started hearing voices in the distance, one of them which was telling him he was in another country in a different hemisphere. An hour into the drive to seemingly nowhere, Pedro finally gets to a sign pointing 3 ways. We have Malaga, Sevilla, and Alcalá. Hope I said that right, I probably didn't. He took the Sevilla detour and 5 minutes later he was outside of his house in Alcalá de Guadaira, which literally wasn't even possible because he took the route which would have taken him back the way he came, meaning further away from his house. Like, how did man like Pedro drive 3 hours to a sign and then end up back at home within 5 minutes? He even tried retracing his route but never found the crossroad or 6-lane highway again. And a 6-lane highway going missing, that is a big deal, you guys.
Coming in at number 8 we have the castle. Posted on Reddit by the user John30859, he shared his experience visiting a parallel universe. But this one was actually quite magical. So story goes that John and his cousin were outside on the porch when 2 teenagers approached them and asked them if they wanted to see a castle. I mean, that has stranger danger written all over it. But the 2 boys were young and naive, so they followed them along a path in the woods. Little while later, they saw a huge beautiful castle in the distance. They got so excited that they ran home to show their parents. But when they arrived home, his mom got mad and told them to stay inside for the rest of the night. Here's the thing, he claims that his mom is very strict. She's always checking in on them when they're playing outside, so she would have noticed if they left. On top of that, in the area he lives in, there are no castles or churches or anything else that could have been mistaken for a castle. But the boys both vividly remember seeing the castle, even now at 25 years old. So what happened? Well, other people replied to his post offering him 2 explanations. One is that they were taken to Fairy, basically a parallel dimension that can only be reached by doors and hills, under lakes and wells, through hedges, etc. The next is that the teenagers were actually aliens in disguise that brought them into another dimension. Either way, they somehow got transported into a world that has a giant castle.
For number 7, with work mix-up. Reddit user Shock Hates Life wrote about a week ago about how watching a YouTube video recently had them thinking about past experiences. And if this is you, let me know if it was our video. Anyways, they were at a new job where they had worked for about 4 days, so no one knew their name. They were in the bathroom on their phone when a fire alarm went off, and people were talking, moving, and telling people to head outside, and then people were calling Shock Hates Life by their real name, even though they thought no one knew their name. And then suddenly they said it was like they knew everyone in there, and they've been there for a while, and then they came to, back in the bathroom and on their phone. 2 separate experiences. I'm thinking maybe they traded consciousness with their counterpart from another universe, maybe? Or it could be like Reddit user Cashew Proscenzo says, they had Deja Rev, which is an experience that they had already dreamed instead of something they've already seen. And talking about Deja, could we consider this next one Deja Vu?
At number 6 we have the Super Mario Bros. Movie Dinosaur Universe. Some of you may not know this, but there was a live-action Super Mario Bros. Movie made in the 90s. The reason you don't know about this is because it was one of the worst movies ever made. The film literally has nothing to do with the games. In the film, the meteor that killed the dinosaurs didn't kill them. It knocked them into another dimension where everything is gross and weird and storylines are horrible. The movie makes about as much sense as Cat Dog. P.S. I love that show. The Dino World has strange tech, weird dinosaur hardcore monsters and the worst fashion sense I have ever seen. I mostly included it on this list because it's so bad it's scary.
Coming in at number 5, we have dreams. Could our dreams be signals from a parallel universe? Some say maybe. In a number of First Nations cultures in North and Central America, people believe that dreams allow us to walk planes in other dimensions. Their reasoning is that dreams take place in color and can include all of their senses. They think that when you're in a dream, you are in another world, perhaps a world you already exist in. If you're doing something strange in your dream, maybe it's a sign that actually you live a far stranger life somewhere else.
Alright, at number 4 we have the Mary Celeste. This one has been baffling people for centuries. It's one of the greatest missing person stories of all time. It was back in 1872 when the Mary Celeste set sail. It was a cargo ship packed with booze and it never made it to its destination. It was found off the coast of Portugal with its entire crew missing. Not only that, but the cargo was intact, so they weren't attacked by pirates. The crew still had their belongings on board, so it was not likely that they left by their own will. There's a chance that the whole crew went mad and jumped overboard, or a portal from another dimension opened up and they all got sucked into a different universe. There could have been a bunch of dudes from the 17th century running around in a futuristic world. It would have been like every primetime show from the 90s with a time travel plot. They're from the past, but now they're in the future. What will they do? Find out watching Anchored in Time, 8 p.m. on Fox.
In our third spot, we have the Workday. This story was posted 4 years ago on Reddit, but sadly the account is now deleted, so I can't give them credit. So according to this post, it was September 11th, 2015, and the guy was headed to his job of 5 years. But when he got there, he said that something fell off. In fact, he saw employees that he had never even seen before. He ended up striking a conversation with one of them and mentioned how it was September 11th and how it was sad what happened on that day. But the employee had no clue what he was talking about. The guy explained it, but the employee was all like, "What attacks? That never happened." Then on his way home, he was listening to the radio and it mentioned Howard Dean as president. Obviously this freaked the guy out, so as soon as he got home he decided to just lay down and relax. He ended up falling asleep, and when he woke up he was back in his normal universe. Honestly, I think it would be super scary to get trapped in a universe that isn't yours. Like, you'd be telling stories and people would be like, "What are you talking about, you little crazy person?" Like, no one would believe you. You'd be by yourself. Sad.
On to number 2, a house that lost a closet. Now, Reddit user Indiana BDC talked about his own weird scenario. When his wife and him moved into a house in 2010, they found a small door that connected 2 of their closets together. At the time, it connected the master bedroom to the game room. He even remembers taking a photo of it on his BlackBerry and posting it to Facebook, saying that one day he will give a good scare to his kids or something. Well, when that day eventually came, when some family was visiting, he decided to pop into the closet to give a good scare to his relatives. But the thing is, he couldn't find the small door. Then he went into the game room and there's a blank wall where the original closet door was. And then even weirder, scrolling backwards through Facebook, he couldn't find his original post, as if the closet was removed from all aspects of his life but his memory. Now, it's one thing to lose a closet, but another to lose the history of a whole person.
And for our number 1 spot we have Otherworld in Silent Hill. One of the best horror franchises in gaming history. Silent Hill's probably given more teens nightmares than a salvia trip. If you're unfamiliar with Silent Hill, it's the series of games that take place in a little town with the same title. For the most part, Silent Hill is a quaint, slightly unsettling area, but that all changes when you cross over to Otherworld. It's uncertain exactly what it is. Some people think that it's purgatory, while other people think it's a corrupt force that looms over an area. It doesn't matter, once you're there, everything you fear, all your deepest, darkest regrets will manifest themselves into horrible things and hunt you down. Some people will see strange dog-like creatures or demonic babies, and other people will see Pyramid Head. Yeah, this guy seems like a fun time. Alright, at number 10 we're going to be kicking off this list with the multiverse theory. If anyone at home is not a fan of science or has never picked up a comic book, then you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Information on this topic goes deeper than a fat kid in a ball pit, so I'm going to give you the Cole's notes on this. Since 1957, when physicist Hugh Everett first suggested it, scientists have proposed the idea that we could be living in an infinite landscape of universes. There are a ton of theories on how this multiverse multiverse is composed, and I am not smart enough to break them all down for you, but I'll give you one example. A common idea is that there's a landscape of universes which are flat and go on forever, with universes sitting beside each other. Because this landscape is infinite, you can have universes that are drastically different. There could be universes where superheroes are real, and people read comic books about ordinary people to try and escape the stress of their super-filled life. And there could be universes that are so similar to ours but slightly off. Like you could have blonde hair instead of brown hair, or Twinkies could be healthy.
With that tragic performance from Che, now
Coming in at number 9, we have the man from TAURED. Were we sent a man from another parallel universe, or did he arrive via some kind of portal or vortex? Our story here stems back to 1954 when a man was detained at the Japanese border after arriving on a plane from Europe to Haneda Airport. The man said he was on his 3rd business trip to Japan that year, and he had a wallet filled with a mixture of currencies, seeming to verify his business traveller status. When he presented his passport, officials were absolutely baffled, asking where he was from. Now the man, who primarily spoke French, said, "TAURED, where is this mystery place?" He showed his passport again and the stamps that supported his travels. The only thing is, nobody had ever heard of TAURED. The company he was travelling to said that they'd never heard of him, and he was carrying a checkbook to a non-existent bank. When he was asked to point out TAURED on the map, he pointed to where Andorra is today and seemed confused and offended to be told that it's not a real country. He was detained in a hotel overnight while Japanese authorities decided what to do with him, but by morning he disappeared. Did he accidentally walk through a portal to another universe? Maybe.
At number 8 we have Deja Vu, that feeling when you swear you've seen something before, like you can feel it in your bones. Some people think it could be your instincts telling you what's going to happen, maybe like a spidey sense. Maybe we all have spidey sense, we just don't know how to use it yet. Where other people say it's a delay in the communication between your left and right side of your brain. It's like when you're in a conversation with a group of people and you say something, then someone in the group says the exact same thing that you just said, and you're like, you never listened to me, you're being a bad friend. But what if it's none of these things? What if it's you tapping into the frequency of another universe for just a moment? If parallel universe theory is right, there could be infinite universes. So there could be a universe exactly like this one, but just a little bit ahead. Deja vu could be you getting a glimpse into this space for a moment and then returning back to our reality. This was suggested by physicist Michio Kaku in his book Parallel Worlds. Maybe every time you feel like you've been somewhere before, it's another version of you that has been, and for a brief moment you're connecting to them. If I could tap into this ability, I would make so much money gambling.
Moving on at number 7, we have the 3rd floor. This next story was posted on Reddit by the user FeiFei775. Back in 2015, he went to the hospital to visit his dad, who was a patient there. After spending some time with him, he left with his friend to go get some snacks. So they hopped on the elevator and went to the 3rd floor where all the food was. But when the doors opened, they found that the whole area was completely deserted. The lights were flickering and the floor was trashed. Scared, they headed on back to the 5th floor where his dad's room was. Fast forward to a week later, they are back at the hospital. And turns out that his dad was, and had always been, on the 3rd floor, which was now cleaned up and in use. So he's convinced that he somehow took an elevator to a different universe.
At number 6, we have Deja Vu. A little fun word thing there. This one is from another commenter from our last video on the topic. Mike Spears felt like he had an experience, like something from a parallel universe, back when he was 13. He wrote that it was Insect Day, which I'm going to take as an autocorrect for Inset Day, which is another word for TD Day or PD Day that stands for In-Service Training Day. Basically, it's a day off from school. Anyways, his dad woke him up on that day and said, "We are gonna go for breakfast, come on, let's get ready." And then he remembers having a lovely day with a full English breakfast, went shopping, and all in all made a very nice day of it. Then at the end of the night, he got ready for sleep to return to school in the morning. A great inset day. Then, the next morning, his dad woke him up and said, "We're all going out for breakfast, come on, get ready." And he looked outside, saw it was nice, and asked to double check if it was school today, only for his dad to tell him, "Don't be silly, it's inset day, we're all gonna go out and make the most of the day." So he was thinking, is this the same day twice? Mick said that to this day he is confused about the who, what, when, where, and why of the whole situation, which I would be too. But not the worst situation. reliving a fun day twice seems, yeah, kinda nice. Kinda like the movie About Time. It's a good movie, I recommend it.
At number 5, we have Earth 3. In the world of DC Comics, there is the Justice League, a team of the greatest superheroes. Parallel to them from Earth 3 is the Crime Syndicate, but they have evil brewing deep inside them like a musty fart after you've had too much hot sauce on your burrito. There's the Grid, who is the evil version of Cyborg. There's Deathstorm, who's the evil version of Firestorm. Johnny Quick, evil version of the Flash. Power Ring, evil version of Green Lantern. Sea King, evil version of Aquaman. Owlman, evil version of Batman. And finally, we have Superwoman and Ultraman being the evil versions of Superman and Wonder Woman. All of these villains operate with the same powers as the heroes with some minor changes. Like Ultraman has no weakness to kryptonite. He actually uses kryptonite to power himself, and he has a weakness to sunlight. Power Ring constantly demoralizes him, and Superwoman has a lasso of submission instead of a lasso of truth. Hot. There is so much more to cover about these guys, but we only have so much time in this video. Also, Earth 3 isn't just where the Crime Syndicate comes from, but all the evil in the DC multiverse. Well, at least in the New 52. I know all you comic book nerds can destroy me on this. Please, spare me your wrath.
Coming in at number 4, we have the Bruise. Anyone else here bruised like a peach? Just me? Me? And the universe. In 2010, along with a team of researchers, Stephen Feeney of the University College in London announced that he had discovered patterns in the radiation background left over from the Big Bang. Now this seemed to suggest that our universe bumped into not 1, not 2, but 4 other universes and was left bruised. Okay, what is the plural of universes? Universi? Universi? Universi. Also, from the bruising, further researchers in California think that it is clear that this leads to some kind of like bubble universe theory, which maybe I can get on board with. Maybe Men in Black got it right when they imagined us all as marbles in a big bag.
Filling our number 3 slot is the wrong Riverside. This one follows a woman called Carol Chase McElhaney who is driving from San Bernardino to Perris, California. Now on her way there, she passed a sign for Riverside, which is where she grew up, so she decided to make the pit stop there to relive her childhood and have some nostalgic vibes, because we all love a cheeky nostalgic vibe, don't we? She started driving to the street she grew up on, but her old house was nowhere to be found, and none of the houses were recognizable to her at all. And it wasn't like everything had been bulldozed over and reconstructed, it just wasn't the same. Straight up, it was different. Freaked out, Carol drove to her grandma's old street to find that that was looking different as well. She then went to the cemetery where both her grandparents were buried to find no cemetery at all, but a fenced up lot with weeds everywhere in its place. At this point, Carol was like, am I being punked? Where is Ashton Kutcher? Like, is he gonna come out? As a final grasp at sanity, she went to University Avenue, a street where there were usually restaurants and hotels, but now there was just a bunch of graffiti and run-down buildings, and the people there were just off. No one was smiling, they were all wearing black, and Carol was getting the feeling that if she spoke to any of them, she'd be stuck in that place forever. But our girl did not give up there. She spent the next few hours trying to find something from her past in Riverside, and when she came up short, she finally went home. Years later, Carol's father died and was going to be buried at the same cemetery in Riverside, and when Carol arrived in town, everything was how it was from when she was young. So how did she happen upon a Riverside from a different dimension that was just bad, and now she's back in the regular one? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Coming in at number 2, we have The Assignment. 3 Acid Nirvana on Reddit shared his experience about traveling to another universe, where something freaky happened to him at school. So in one of his courses, his teacher gave the class a massive research assignment. For the assignment, they had to use resources from a list the teacher supplied them with. So he ended up using this one book in the library to help him write the paper. About a week before the paper was due, he needed to go cite something from the book, but he already returned it to the library. So he went to the library and asked to get the book. Not only did the library not carry the book, but there was no such book ever written. Which is freaky, because how could he write a whole paper on a topic that he didn't know without any sources? So he must have traveled to a different universe, one where that book doesn't exist.
At number 1, Brother Who? Our last one comes from Reddit by the user Moonibongo. When he was 13, he remembers going to his best friend's brother's funeral who was hit by a car. He had known his best friend since kindergarten and had all these memories with her brother. She herself was pretty broken up about it and took a week off of school, and when he asked her how she was after she came back, she said, "Great, never better, since I just recovered from a cold." But this obviously confused Moonibongo, so he asked, "What cold? Your brother died." But then his best friend pulled a weird face and said, "I don't have a brother." At the school, no one else remembered the brother either, and when he visited his best friend's house, there were no photos of a brother, as if that brother just never existed. To this day, he gets poked fun at for thinking that she did have a brother who passed away, but he still says he has a burn mark on his arm from when her brother was playing with magnifying glasses and accidentally hurt him. He thinks he could have slipped into another dimension similar to his own because of all the memories he has that are very vivid.